Action at the U.S. Supreme Court. No answers from Illinois' DEI Commission, America's Talking, and the impacts of tariffs. This is the Center Square Daily for Monday, February 23rd, 2026. I'm your host, Greg Bishop. As you'll find at thecentersquare.com, this morning, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear a climate change lawsuit. The U.S. Supreme Court agreeing to hear a case over whether states can sue fossil fuel companies for damages related to climate change. The Center Square's Andrew Rice reports the nation's high court asked both parties in that Colorado lawsuit to submit briefs on whether it has constitutional authority to decide the case. The case challenges the authority of state and local governments to use nuisance laws in proceedings against fossil fuel companies. Lawyers for the energy company said the Clean Air Act protects entities from being involved in lawsuits regarding emissions that span across state lines. Typically, state nuisance laws are used in disputes with neighbors where an individual may be conducting activities that lowers the value of another individual's property. Now, the Trump administration joined others in encouraging the High Court to review the case in that brief to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court's expected to release a decision on that case by July, but oral arguments have yet to be set. Now, Friday, the court released their ruling on some of President Donald Trump's tariffs, saying he exceeded his authority. That led to some of Trump's harshest critics, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and California Governor Gavin Newsom, to make some demands.
And this, the most regressive sales tax in modern American history. Finally, that will come to an end. Pay us back. Put that money back in the pockets of working families and the American people.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump owes the families of the United States and the families of the state of Illinois what seems to be about $2,000 per household for the illegal tariffs that he put on them. And so I want to know how he's going to, provide that money for the taxpayers, for the people of all of our states, but in particular for the state of Illinois.
Now, Friday, the president was asked about what happens to the money they collected, and he said the court was silent on that question.
They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. I said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
We'll talk more about the controversy around that ruling coming up with the Center Square's Sarah Roderick-Fitch. But first, let's turn to our investigative team with the Center Square. Investigator Jared Strong going quite the distance to hold an Illinois commission accountable. Jared, thanks for taking time with us this morning. You have the latest. Illinois diversity leaders dodge questions as they slip farther from their goals. You've been reporting on this now for months, and you actually had to drive the distance to get some answers. Tell us about it.
Well, yes, we've been looking into the Illinois Commission on Equity and Inclusion for several months now. Their job is basically to make sure that more state money is spent with businesses that are owned by racial minorities, women, and those with disabilities. Our reporting has shown that they've backslid on those goals somewhat. And as we've asked questions repeatedly about that and about sort of the structure of their jobs in recent months by email, by leaving voicemails, everything has been unreturned. They've only responded to us when forced to by state law in regards to records requests. So I drove to Chicago. It was a 6-hour drive, and unfortunately, it didn't yield much more. I was able to talk briefly with one of the commissioners, but he wasn't answering questions.
What kinds of questions did you have for him?
Well, one of the big problems that they've encountered is a switch to a new computer system that was supposed to make getting these businesses registered and eligible for these state contracts easier. But instead, it's had the opposite effect. It's had the effect of blocking them from access. And so, I mean, I want to know what they've tried to do to fix it, why they haven't perhaps reverted back to their old system. But those questions, again, that I've posed to them in writing have gone unanswered. Then also, we're looking into how their jobs are set up. This is a relatively new commission created by lawmakers in 2022. Been running for a few years now. They're appointed, these 7 commissioners are appointed by the governor. They each make $150,000 a year. So this is clearly a priority for state lawmakers. But our investigation has found that, they're making $150,000 a year. That's more than other their counterparts, other appointed board and commission members elsewhere in state government who meet more frequently. These commissioners meet once a month, and that was the meeting that I went to last week. In those meetings, they take no votes of consequence. They vote to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. They vote to approve the remote participation of one or more of the commissioners, and then they work side jobs. I mean, some of these other boards and commissions, the members of those that are paid large amounts of money, they don't get to work those side jobs. But our investigation has shown that some of the members of the Commission on Equity and Inclusion have had side jobs that have paid more than $10,000, tens of thousands of dollars actually, in a year. So that's in addition to the money that they're already collecting from the state. So we want to know about all of that. Is this a full-time job for these folks? And if so, why are we not seeing the results that the state is paying for?
Jared, you were able to get to that meeting last week, and you had a videographer with you filming the meeting. And then afterwards, you approached one of the board members, Bruce Montgomery, and I would encourage people to go to thecentersquare.com, find Jared's story, watch the entirety of the interaction. We're just going to have a clip here for you. But let's hear the clip. And really, I guess, the question I have is, did you get any answers? And this kind of explains it. Go ahead and roll that clip.
We're not interested in stuck in the mud. We're interested in moving forward.
Sure. Yeah. I guess one.
I hope that's helpful.
I guess one of my main.
Do you have some ideas that you think would move the organization?
Well, I have questions for you.
Well, why don't you have some solutions and some suggestions or recommendations?
It's not. I mean, that's not my job.
Or to talk to small businesses and get some ideas.
I'm here to report on how you guys make your decisions and your.
I think you should report on how the organization is a listening organization, that we're concerned in innovation, we're looking to do what we do in ways that add value to the constituents and stakeholders we have, and we'll take ideas from you or anybody else.
Well, but your
That's
decision.
all I have to say.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
6 hours you drove to have them ask you for your recommendations. How did you find that? What was your reaction when they're like, well, what kind of recommendations do you, Mr. Reporter, have for us who's getting $7 million in taxpayer money for the state of Illinois? What kinds of suggestions do you have for us?
It was a bit unexpected. Yeah. I mean, he was talking around the situation the entire time during that encounter. I think we just talked for about 3 minutes. But he didn't allow me to spit out any of those questions. Just we went round and round about, the ways that I could get my answers, and I just kept telling him, I'm here right now. That is the purpose of my visit, is to talk directly to you because I have not been able to get answers any other way. I mean, maybe he could find some solutions in the questions that I was asking, but I'm not going to make suggestions on how he should do his job.
And you sat through that board hearing, and there were others there that were making suggestions. They weren't reporters looking out to see how the taxpayer dollars are being spent, per se. So it was an interesting kind of exchange you had with that commission member, Bruce Montgomery. And again, just to let people know, I mean, $7 million of Illinois tax dollars going to this commission annually. They get paid $150,000 each year. Altogether, their salaries are $1 million. But you guys are finding out with the investigative team with the Center Square that they're actually backsliding on what their goals are.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the main things that they need to do is increase, like I said before, the number of businesses who are certified to get that priority for the state contracts. And our reporting has shown that, I mean, even in this latest meeting, their numbers were down again, down to 2,782. That's almost half of what it was at its peak during the commission's tenure. So it's way down. And it's still going down, apparently, despite their best efforts. You know, they're sticking with this new computer system. They're trying to force businesses to, go through this different certification process. It's more work for them. They're making phone calls to businesses that were certified and are no longer. That was a recent push that's been going on for a month now. They've called hundreds of businesses, and yet it still hasn't produced that progress that they need. They're still backsliding in that regard.
And when it comes to what exactly the goal is here, you had mentioned it's to get contracts. These are taxpayer-funded contracts. Do we know how much they're dealing with, and how many contracts they're hoping to handle with what their goals are?
Well, as you've reported, and our viewers know, Illinois, the lawmakers recently approved like $56 billion for their operating budget. But the amount of money that they spend each year is far beyond that. It's, 3 times that, 4 times that. So we're talking about, more than $100 billion that is potentially up for grabs for these businesses. And they just can't get that priority if they're not certified.
Pretty remarkable. I imagine you're going to continue reporting on this and see what kind of answers you can get. And as you said, I mean, countless emails, countless voicemails you've left. It seems the only answers you're able to get are through public records requests that they're required to provide. Do you think you made any ends by showing up? Do you think that maybe they'll see your name on an email and be like, you know what, I'm going to save this guy a 6-hour trip. I'm going to give him a courtesy call and talk to him?
Well, I hope so, because I want to know more. And I think people, taxpayers want to know more about this. I mean, we have a pending records request to get emails to get insight into this issue. They've partially fulfilled that, but many of the emails are redacted. I've challenged that with the Attorney General's office, and that's still pending. Their budget's going to be up for consideration by lawmakers soon. Someone from their staff is going to be talking to lawmakers and probably be grilled by some lawmakers about this situation. And they have an annual report due, and that will be the first one that sort of encompasses this time frame after the switch to the new computer system. So we should get a better glimpse of the actual effect of the problems that they've been having.
We'll be watching that closely, and we'll also be watching for updates from you and the investigative team. Jared Strong, investigator for the Center Square. Greatly appreciate your time, as always. And we'll be checking back in with the investigative unit here for the Center Square Daily. Meanwhile, it is time for America's Talking, and news clips from across the country and state houses dealing with a variety of issues in Minnesota, with all of the spotlight on the fraud, alleged fraud, and how to tackle that. You have Senator Michael Holstrom and Senator Omar Fattah debating a bill that would allow for lawsuits against police who are enforcing immigration law if there are allegations that rights were violated.
What's your question? Go ahead.
The Sheriff's Association has correctly asserted that this bill will likely destroy all federal and state local partnerships. These partnerships are crucial in prosecuting fraud like Feeding Our Future, and obviously will be necessary in prosecuting the $9 billion in fraud moving forward. So I'll just plainly ask you, was it your intent to make these investigations harder, or was the goal just to undermine fraud investigations explicitly into the future?
And the answer is no. But what we have seen is that at least 14 federal prosecutors have resigned, including the lead prosecutor for Feeding Our Future. So this operation has not been about fraud. It's been made far worse by jeopardizing the current cases that we've seen, and that's a direct result about the actions from our federal government.
I think that the questions around the fraud in Minnesota for that particular program and others is only going to continue, not just in Minnesota, but all across the country. In Washington state, legislators there heard staff describe an expansion of what some would criticize as migrant sanctuary policies dealing with where federal immigration enforcement can take place.
Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5906 prohibits early learning providers and school district employees from collecting information or documents regarding immigration or citizenship status of their students or their family members, except when it is required by state or federal law, or if it is required to administer a state or federally supported program. Relatedly, the bill directs the Attorney General to develop a model policy limiting assistance with immigration enforcement at early learning provider settings and facilities, and early learning providers are encouraged to adopt those model policies.
Washington State looking to join other states like Illinois and California with similar types of migrant sanctuary laws. And a different subject being tackled in Arizona, the staff there in their Senate, they explained a measure that would impact the liability of certain businesses when it comes to someone carrying a concealed firearm in that business.
The amendment stipulates that the presence of a concealed handgun does not create an obligation for the restaurant licensee or an employee of such to take reasonable steps to intervene or notify law enforcement officials in order to satisfy this customer safety requirement. The amendment also establishes that if a serious act of violence occurs on the premises, the licensee is not subject to license suspension if the act of violence results from the concealed handgun, unless the licensee or the employee knew the person was carrying concealed and served them liquor. The amendment further states that a restaurant license may not be suspended or revoked solely on the basis of a person carrying concealed on the premises. The amendment also establishes a presumption that a person carrying concealed is doing so in compliance with the law and that no verification of compliance is required by a restaurant licensee or employee unless it is found that the licensee acted with gross negligence.
And down in Georgia, legislators working out the details of their state's spending plan for how to spend taxpayer dollars in Georgia. And they also discussed how they plan to give some of that taxpayer money back. Here's Georgia State Senator Blake Tillery.
Things to highlight that you did, I want to double down on. We do notice in this budget that's been proposed so far from both chambers that we're returning now over $2 billion to taxpayers. Their money, returning that to them in a time where affordability has been highlighted by both of our chambers as being the #1 issue in our state. The Senate's position, as you have already stated, y'all had $27 million to start the funding of the state mental health hospital. The first time that had been done in 30 years. Looking across things, finding other lines, we've been able to help you more than double down on that line. And those are going to be the positions that the Senate wants to make sure we hold. We want to make sure that we're returning money to taxpayers, that we're keeping as lean a budget as possible.
Always interesting to see the different types of issues being tackled by state houses across the country. And that's it for America's Talking. After the break, we'll talk to the Center Square's Sarah Roderick-Fitch about the tone of Friday's news conference with President Donald Trump reacting to the tariff ruling. That's ahead when the Center Square Daily returns.
From the Center Square, California, CA bill to let
According
LA
to the Center Square,
buy fire destroyed lots. To the Center
Square. I'm with the Center Square. Sarah Roderick-Fitch is my name. Do you plan on designating Antifa finally a domestic terror organization?
Well, it's something I would do, yeah, if I have support from the people back here.
When are you guys going to fold your tent?
These intimidation techniques.
Yeah, right.
Well, if you want it to be.
How is it not an insult to half the American public who voted for Trump when you're talking about Trump being a Nazi?
Those words never came out of my mouth. That is not true what you just said.
Welcome back to the Center Square Daily. I'm your host, Greg Bishop. The fallout continues from Friday's U.S. Supreme Court decision striking down some of President Donald Trump's tariffs. The president held a news conference Friday where the Center Square reporter, Sarah Roderick-Fitch, got to witness the president's reaction firsthand. Sarah joins us now. Sarah, the lights weren't the only thing that seemed a little bit different in the White House press briefing room. The tone also a little bit different. Tell us what it's like being in the room when the president takes the stage, especially on such an impactful day like Friday.
It was a very interesting day, to say the least.
kind of we expected earlier in the morning. I had been following, I accompanied the First Lady to Smithsonian, so we sort of didn't expect this to sort of happen. It came about last minute that we learned that this press conference was going to happen. We sort of expected, once the ruling came down, we sort of expected there was going to be a Truth Social post, obviously something kind of long, because the president had been pushing the tariff stuff so much. This was, this is really a cornerstone of his presidency, and sort of helped him with granting peace deals and bringing back manufacturing jobs, and also national security issues. A lot of it's been tied up with the tariff stuff. So we knew there was going to be a lot of stuff coming from it. So we got there to the White House, back to the White House. Thankfully, Secret Service was awesome getting us back there in time. But yeah, it was a very interesting. The lights kind of came down. Caroline Leavitt actually came out and did it herself. She took it upon herself to do it. But I think it was really just sort of capture the president's mood, really. But it was really interesting. When the president came out, you could see that he was not happy with this. He was visible. He brought out his team with him on the sidelines. A lot of people didn't see, but Attorney General Pam Bondi was also there in attendance, sitting there. But I really think kind of lighting was just sort of to give that, he wanted to give that impression that, hey, this is serious, and sort of a I don't know, an ominous tone. But it was really interesting because as the press conference went on and as the president spoke, he seemed to feel a little bit more, I feel like more, the tone sort of turned to optimistic. He had a plan B, and it sort of turned into, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to be even better than before. So he really, it started out a little bit like he was, definitely angry about it. He certainly was. He was not happy with this ruling. But in a way, he kind of made it seem like, oh, he's going to take lemons and turn it into lemonade. I mean, it was like
he spun it there at the very end, and we'll get to that clip because I do want your reaction to that. But obviously, some of the Supreme Court justices that he nominated didn't side with him on this, and I just want to get your thoughts about Trump's tone versus the tone of other presidents in the past who may have had rulings that didn't go their way. Here's how the president answered a couple of questions from members of the press Friday.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court justices who ruled against this the policy, striking it down, are they still invited to your State of the Union next week? And will you speak with them?
They are invited, barely. 3 are happily invited. No, they're barely invited. Honestly, I couldn't care less if they come, okay?
And do you regret nominating them?
I don't want to say whether or not I regret. I think their decision was terrible. Yeah. I think it's an embarrassment to their families. You want to know the truth, the two of them.
Interesting, again, hearing the president talk about some Supreme Court justices in that fashion.
Yes, and one of the CNN reporter, Kristen Hughes, she actually tried asking the president a question. Of course, the president shot her down. CNN. He said, "No, I don't take fake news." Well, her question, and I'm not sure if people heard it or not, but her question was on Amy Coney Barrett. What his reaction? Did he regret that nomination? Of course, he shot her down. But yeah, it was interesting how he kind of did that. It is sort of, he kind of held back a little bit. I was sort of surprised in a way. He didn't go full force on them. But the reality is that a lot of these justices have gone along with him on several different rulings. So he has actually had, this was really kind of the first loss that he really had. This is one of the big losses. He has had a lot of victories. So in a way, he kind of has to be, a little bit careful because they have gone sort of his way. So especially Gorsuch. Now Gorsuch went against him on this one, but overall Gorsuch has gone with Gorsuch is very much on the conservative. He's an originalist, constitutionalist. He is on that side of the court. And so he has gone with the president. So I think in a way the president was very trying to be tactful as the president can be, to not go after them too much, because I think he does know, hey, they have ruled with him on several instances. But yeah, I think it is interesting how his reaction was, and but I think he kind of kept it. He didn't go after them too personally, which I think the other people, members of my press, my other colleagues, were kind of hoping he was gonna, maybe throw out a some sort of a nickname or whatever,
some
but
invective and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah, and typically when when lawyers are talking about judges' rulings, they're very couched in how they approach that. They do not diminish the credibility of a judge or a justice in this particular case. So yeah, hearing the president react that way, that just in tomorrow he's going to be standing likely in front of these Supreme Court justices a stone's throw away. Then they just handed down that ruling. But obviously, Sarah, the political ramifications from this are just going to be ongoing. And we've already heard two harsh critics of President Donald Trump earlier. And here's just some more from Governor Gavin Newsom out of California and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about what they fear is going to happen next with the president's tariffs.
He is now saying he's got some secret plan to reimpose tariffs or something like tariffs that he hasn't told anybody about, but that he just wants to keep them going. Somehow it seems like that's illegal because the Supreme Court has now ruled that he acted unconstitutionally in carrying out his tariffs.
And what did Donald Trump do? He had a tantrum today, and he decided to tax you all again across the board, 10% across the board under some new authority. He's unhinged. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged.
Again, Gavin Newsom and Governor J.B. Pritzker there, two people who are thought to possibly be vying for the job of president in the 2028 elections. What's some of the other reaction you're hearing there over in Washington, D.C. about this?
I mean, there's a lot of mixed reaction. I talked to, certain economists and everything like that. The idea is that, the president, obviously, it was, really, he's saying it was over the emergency. It was really one thing that they struck down, and Kavanaugh sort of laid a roadmap out for him. But at this point, there's a lot of it that's just sort of, questions that are still up in the air. Even the president said that. He was asked about the money, some of this money that's been generated from the tax revenue. What is going to happen with that? So it's still really new and young. Sure, there's probably going to be some more lawsuits coming from it. But yeah, the Democrats are sort of pouncing on this as sort of an opportunity to say like, oh, this is all legal. But in reality, the Supreme Court said, hey, okay, well, maybe under, you can exercise it under this, and we'll see if that happens. So it'll be, continue to be interesting. The president's not going to let up. He is not going to let up from this. There's no doubt he's used these tariffs as leverage. And I think one of the interesting things was during the press conference, he took a lot of questions from a lot of members of foreign press. I had a lot of members of foreign press around me. And I think that was in a way, he did that on purpose. He was trying to address like the other countries. He was trying to say, hey, we're not going to let up. I know there was a couple reporters from India. There's trade deals going with them that are still stalled and not sure what's going on with them. And so I think the president was sort of trying to send a message to them as well that, hey, he's not going to slow down, that this is not going to change things. But I think one of my question for the president, what I think is going to be really interesting, what comes from this is the president is supposed to be traveling the end of next month to Beijing, China, to meet with President Xi of China. And I think it'll be really interesting because obviously from this ruling, China probably has to be the happiest of anyone, probably happier than, Newsom or Pritzker, which is, hard to believe, but they probably are. And it'll be really interesting to see how that impacts that visit, because I think the president has sort of felt that, hey, he has this leverage now, and we'll see what comes of it. But also there's another part of it too, is with that visit is going to come is the president has also sort of diminished China's power, not just trade-wise, but also Venezuela. They have, and then perhaps in Iran, what's going to happen in Iran, the president has really sort of has taken away a lot of their global power in a way. And so I think that's what the president's going to be, looking for. So I think that'll be really kind of an interesting thing that happens. We'll see
we'll be watching that very closely at the center square. But finally, as you mentioned earlier, the president seemed to spin this right at the tail end before he walked off the podium after taking quite a few questions from both domestic and foreign press about the impacts of this. After just moments before, he said he's disappointed and it's a horrible ruling. He then had this to say about the ruling.
Look, great certainty has been brought back to the economy of the United States and actually the economy of the world, because we generate so much in the world. We're the biggest in the world, and we're now the strongest by far. We were a country that was dead 1.5 years ago. Now we have the hottest country in the world. We're going to keep it that way. Thank you very much, everybody.
Again, moments before, he's saying it was a disastrous ruling. He was posting on Truth Social weeks before that it would destroy the country if his tariffs were shot down. While it was a narrow ruling about emergency tariffs, he says, hey, that's given him some more certainty on how to deal with this issue.
Yes, I do. I think that was what he I don't think he maybe expected, the justices to sort of give him a roadmap, but they gave him a roadmap, especially Kavanaugh gave him a roadmap saying, hey, try this one. You can't use this, but you can use that. So in a way, and he had said during the press conference, he said, actually, in a way, he was like, it should have come sooner, because he was like, now I know what I can do. And so it was like it paved sort of the way for him. And so he kind of seemed a little bit, maybe a sense of relief that it wasn't sort of just hanging over him, because I think that's one of the things was he was thinking, hey, this trip is going to be coming, this trip to China. Okay. This is coming up. This is still hanging over him. And now it's out. And I think in some ways it was a huge relief to him. And a way for him to sort of move forward. And we'll see also, I think will be really interesting what comes of this, because again, tomorrow night's the State of the Union. Right. Is he going to lay out some other plans, for tariffs? I mean, as he had to move to plan B, what's going to be coming next? So I think I kind of wonder, if they had to sort of rework some of the State of the Union to sort of, come to that plan B. I'm sure that they were busy doing that this weekend. I know that he has, just from the schedule, the president he was working all weekend. So he was here in Washington and State. So I'm sure that we will be hearing more about that stuff and some of his other plans tomorrow night during the State of the Union.
No question. Sarah Roderick-Fitch, thank you so much for taking time with us here for the Center Square Daily. All right, well, from my studio in Central Illinois, I'm Greg Bishop. Join us back here Tuesday for more stories impacting you, the taxpayer, from around the country, only with the Center Square Daily.